This week on Storyboard, on the sidelines of the launch of GroupM Futures Report this year, next year 2018, we speak to CVL Srinivas Country Manager WPP India and CEO GroupM South Asia about the findings and how should the media and the advertising industry read this report. And we also speak to Amit Goenka, CEO Z International and Z5 Global, about the launch of their new OTT platform Z5. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat. GroupM announced its advertising expenditure forecast for 2018. The GroupM Futures Report this year, next year 2018 is forecasting that India's advertising expenditure will reach an estimated rupees 69,346 crore this year. This represents a growth of 13% for the calendar year 2018 over that seen in 2017. We caught up with CVL Srinivas, Country Manager WPP India and CEO GroupM South Asia and asked him whether he is happy about this figure. Let's take a look at this chat to find out his answer.
Srini, tell me the headline number. What's the headline? The only number that matters.
The headline number is a 13% growth for the overall ADEX.
Right.
This is calendar year 2018 versus 17.
Right. So is 13% a number that you're happy with? As in, would you rather have predicted more or less? What is it?
Well, let's put it this way. I think we are a little more optimistic at the start of this year than we were last year, same time. Last year we put out a number of 10%, so we're definitely better than last year in terms of an industry forecast. But at the same time, not as good as, let's say, 2015, for example, which in the last 3-4 years was probably the best year for us as an industry, where we grew at about 14.5%.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a in-between kind of a year. Not as bad as 17, but yeah, I wish it could have been better.
One of the takeouts I have when talking to marketers is that there is no shortage of money, but they're asking a lot more questions before outlaying money. Would you tend to agree with that? Is that?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think, accountability of the media spend is, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't there. It was always there, but I think it's just got a lot tighter in the last couple of years.
Right.
What clients demand of us as agencies and what we demand of media owners who are our partners, I think has gone up by several notches.
Right.
I think measurement systems have always been, I mean, not just in India, have always been scrambling to kind of get their act together and ensure that, because it's always the consumer who first moves, the marketer agencies obviously follow, and then the measurement comes in. So I think those systems are kind of fallen in place. The challenge is always to try and build a clear feedback loop and go and tell clients in terms of what is giving you what return kind of a thing. I mean, investment in which media is working, what isn't working, etc., etc. But I think we're getting there. If you look at us as an industry over the last 2-3 years, I think a lot of work has gone into building systems like this and planning and buying. Some of the contracts we sign with our media partners have a lot of accountability clauses built in,
right.
And that helps. And I've seen in cases where you actually go and can actually tell a client, almost prove to a client that this spend has actually worked for you.
Right.
We don't really have an issue getting budgets to the next campaign.
Right. You know, last year, on the same discussion this year, next year, there was a lot of focus on brand safety and delivery of video ads and so on and so forth.
Yes.
This year, there was no mention of it, and I was a little surprised. I thought maybe you'd have spoken about the progress you've made in these two areas.
Actually, we did put it up as one of the key trends. We actually packaged everything under the accountability, which Tushar spoke about earlier on, saying the kind of processes and systems that the agencies and publishers, etc., need to put in place today have to drive a lot more accountability. Actually, this really being a part of that, whether it's brand safety, whether it's viewability, whether it's ad fraud.
Right.
I think, I mean, these debates need to happen. They've been happening now for the last year or so. I think all the right questions are being asked, because I think the more the money that goes on to digital media, where, with so much of technology enhancements happening day after day, and lesser control coming to advertisers and agencies, there is always this fear of, where is my brand going to be seen? Is it going to be seen by a human being in the first place, or whatever else? So I think, according to me, all the debates are good debates to have. I think all the right questions are being asked. I just think the publishers, the media owners need to step up in terms of their responses, because otherwise, the big point, Anant, in this is that, we all know that brands today want to, stand for, being meaningful and doing good to society, etc., right? I mean, otherwise, once you erode that trust with your consumer, then everything else falls to naught. So if you apply the same logic to a media partner, I think the day has come today where advertisers and agencies, very rightly so, are saying, how meaningful are the media partnerships that I have, are these platforms that I have, which is where all of these things, come into light, and I'm sure something positive is going to come out of this. Yeah.
In keeping with the current practice of acronyms and buzz, so you had the 3 V's up there for digital. So that was video, vernacular, and voice. Right. So now these 3 V's, video. It's a discussion you and I have had earlier.
Yeah.
Video and vernacular. Where is the vernacular video compared to the demand that Tushar seems to be projecting?
Yeah.
Do you have enough content to support this?
Yeah, I think the content ecosystem for vernacular is falling in place.
Right.
We have seen, in fact, in the last couple of years, the number of content creators that have come up. If you've been to our own event, Brew, which is a content upfront that we've been organizing now for the last 4 years, and if you look at the kind of partners who have been coming there year after year, in fact, this year when we held it in Delhi, the kind of participation we had from regional or vernacular content creators was stupendous. In fact, we had, I think, over 30-40% of all people in the room that they were actually creating very, very high quality language content. So yeah, the content ecosystem is definitely falling in place. Now, are clients doing enough to kind of leverage that ecosystem? The answer is very clearly no.
Right.
I think there's a lot more we could do with.
Whose job is it to help the client navigate that space?
All of us. I think it's the agencies. I think we also need clients to, in certain cases, be willing to experiment because some of these things are not. I mean, there are no proof points as yet in some of these newer emerging areas. But the clients who have experimented, who are going down that path, are seeing decent returns. And I think it's commonsensical, right? In a country like India, with the kind of heterogeneity, etc., that we have, ultimately it's languages. Regional languages, vernacular languages, that is going to fuel the growth of any medium.
When Karthik Nagarajan, your colleague, spoke about the changes that he seems to foresee in the content space, one is he sort of made a division between brand and tactical. Speaking about how more and more brand money is now coming to content.
Yeah.
So can you expand on that just to help me understand that space?
Yeah, I think what started off as a bit of a trickle with the Red Bulls and, maybe an Nescafe here and there, maybe some of the Unilever brands, maybe some of the car brands like Mercedes, etc. in the early years, has today really caught on. And I think brands have today started looking at themselves as publishers, not just as a form of a product, because ultimately to kind of engage with and connect with an audience, today, the audience needs, on the one hand, a lot of variety, a lot of different pieces and shapes and forms of the brand, but at the same time, all of it tied together to form something very meaningful about the brand's core promise. So I think that's really the challenge which many brands are facing. And the way they're addressing it, the ones who are, I think, getting their act right, is to look at themselves not just as a brand of a soap or a car or whatever else, but to look at themselves as publishers of interesting content. And bits and pieces of different kinds of content, all of which in the consumer's mind then add up to what the brand stands for. So I think that's the point Karthik was trying to make. And therefore, what is advertising money versus what is, brand money versus what is content or innovation kind of a fund is all kind of getting merged into one and actually making our lives more interesting as well.
Right. Now, one of the offshoots of this is whose money comes where? Should large advertisers, large marketers, start having a person in charge of content internally? I mean, one of two do, in fact, have somebody in the content space. But I'm saying, do we need to have a director content? Because of the sort of move towards content, whether it is in the print space, the digital space, or indeed the video space.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you see it as a client or as an advertiser. I mean, there are some who probably will go down that path and start having some of their marketing colleagues manage just content for the brand. But I think there are some who will realize that it's probably integral to a brand manager or a marketing manager's role today,
right,
to be able to kind of understand content, what content works and doesn't work for his or her brand, as much as other levers which are available as a marketing manager. And of course, the agency ecosystem is the one which will be relied upon heavily, because at the end of the day, there's only that much you can do in-house. And in something like content and creativity, I think the wider the ecosystem, the better the chance there is to get more ideas coming in. In fact, a great example of leveraging content is what we do for Unilever, and we've done it now for the last 4 years on the trot, where we actually get all the content creators into the Unilever campus.
And what we do for Unilever, we've been running lessons in marketing excellence for 9 years plus. Yeah,
of course. So yeah, so all these are great examples of getting the best in content, wherever they are, into the system, so to speak, and curate all of that so as to work for brands and end of the day deliver results.
Right. Srini, in your remarks, one of the most heartening things that I heard out of that, and I think this whole building will like it. You said television will steady at some level, and there's no, in the foreseeable future, you can't see the ability to ignore television. You're saying, anything between 35 and 40% audience share they will have, or rather you said AdX share, and it'll settle there. So explain to me why that is there. Why, and you said it's the same in the US, it doesn't fall below a threshold level.
Yeah, I think firstly, it's very easy to look at what's happening in other markets and then assume that one fine day, it'll happen exactly the same way in India. You can't extrapolate that way, because I think firstly, if you look at it as a media person would, India is obviously extremely complex and different from every other market. In terms of just stratification of society, in terms of geographic, dispersion of audiences, in terms of, wealth distribution across audiences, so on and so forth. Even today, TV reaches about 75% of the total audience in India. Print probably reaches 40%. Digital obviously is getting to 40-50%, and so on. Now, for a market like India,
when you say digital, you're including mobile digital as well.
Yeah, mobile of course by itself reaches a far higher number, but I'm just talking about mobile overall digital access to internet or digital media. But if you look at a country like India, and if you were a marketer who's obviously needing to reach out to, let's say, a bulk of the audience, for some time to come, television is going to continue being the most cost-effective medium, first of all, to reach those audiences. Right. Number one. Number two, and this is where I think India becomes even more unique, to kind of build trust and credibility with audiences. It's been proven time and again, study after study, that a certain amount of mass media presence in India is needed, which is why India is again one of the few markets where the tech brands, the e-com brands and the tech brands and many tech players advertise very heavily on traditional media. In fact, some of the biggest growths on TV and print are actually coming from not the traditional TV and print advertisers, but from the tech players who would otherwise, you would think, be on digital media. So to that extent, India is a bit different. And if you look at a market like the US, which is at the other end of the spectrum, obviously in terms of technology, in terms of digital, right up there, most of the innovation happens in that market. Right. Even today, television accounts for close to 30-35% of the total AdX. So in India, if anything, it will be more. And it will stay at that level for some time to come.
Right. CVL, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
And I hope 13 is proven to be pessimistic rather than optimistic. But I think all of us need a boost in this business.
Yes.
And you, as the largest, need the largest boost. So all the best to you.
Thank you so much. 13 is a good number for a change. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This report also hints how the growth in digital media will continue to outstrip other media platforms. But unlike most markets, India will continue to see traditional media formats grow. On this note, it is time for us to take a short break. On the other side of this break, we speak to Amit Goenka, CEO, Zee International and ZEE5 Global, about the launch of their new OTT platform, ZEE5.